Simplify numbers of the form square root of negative b, where b is bigger than 0. So, told you a while back we'd get two examples where we can take square roots of negative numbers. So there's this realm called imaginaries, and the square root of negative 1 is equal to what's called I, an imaginary number. So we can look at this and say square root of the negative part brings out an I, square root of 49 brings out 7. So, square root, if we have a negative 121, this negative comes from here. Square root of this puts an I. Square root of 121 is 11. So square root of negative 121 is 11i with the negative tacking on from the front. Square root of negative 3 is I square roots of 3. So that negative comes out and becomes an imaginary. Square root of negative 32 is four I square roots of 2. So now say we want to multiply these two numbers together. There's two ways we can do this. We can say, well, this is square root of 24, which happens to be 2 square roots of 6. Excuse me, that should have been 16, which is 64, which is 8. Or we can say, well, this is the same thing as saying 2i, and this is the same thing as saying 4i, and so we get 8i squared. So here's the second piece of info. I squared is equal to negative 1. So this becomes negative 8. So you have to be careful in that to bring out the negatives, you want to bring out an I, so we get negative 8 here. 6. Well, if we have square root of negative 5 times square root of negative 11, we get I root 5 times I root 11, or I squared root 55, which is negative root 55. Because we have two negatives in here, the 1 comes out. You can think about it that way. Square root of negative 3 times square root of negative 12. Well, that's I root 3 times I root 12, or I squared square root of 36, which is negative 6. Square root of 13 times square root of negative 2 is square root of 13 times I root 2, which is I square roots of 26. So likewise, we can also divide. So, given something like square root of negative 72 over square root of negative 8, that is I square roots of 72 over I square roots of 8, which the i's cancel. 72 divided by 8 leaves you a square root of 9, which is 3. Or we can do something like square root of negative 48 divided by square roots of 3. So this one is 4i square roots of 3 divided by square root of 3, They cancel, leaving me with 4i. So we can multiply, divide, and later we're going to learn we can add and subtract these complex numbers. Square root of 1 is I squared is -1. These two rules will govern these types of problems.